Good to see you. I'm Dorian, and welcome to Last Call Baseball, number 161. Pitching. All fan bases are belly aching about their team's pitching staff. This is what I want to talk about this week. Let me present to you Exhibit A, the Los Angeles Dodgers and their pitching injuries. Before the All-Star break, the Dodgers had lost 5 of their last 6 games before the All-Star game. All their pitching injuries, you have Tyler Glasnow was on the injury list with lower back tightness. Glasnow came back to pitch. He pitched well against the San Francisco Giants a few days ago. On Wednesday, he pitched 5 innings. Their $300 million man, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, a couple of weeks ago, he was put on the 60-day injured list. So you know that dude is not coming back until end of August, September, who knows. Shohei Ohtani, the best player in the world. He's a DH this year, but he's not pitching because obviously he's recovering from Tommy John surgery. Clayton Kershaw, the legendary LA Dodgers pitcher, he just came back. I love Kershaw just as much as everyone else, but I have zero faith he's going to stay healthy. I have zero faith he's going to help them in the playoffs. Something's going to break down, unfortunately. I'd love for Clayton Kershaw to go off into the sunset and be inducted into the Hall of Fame very soon. Then you have Walker Buehler, the man with the tightest pants in the game. He's scheduled to start facing batters soon. Apparently, he's still working out back home in Kentucky. So who knows how long it's going to take him to get back to not just pitch in the minor leagues, but obviously come up to pitch for the LA Dodgers and help them out. This is like a roll call, like you're in class, like 8 a.m. Dustin May, he's out for the season with one of the weirdest injuries a sports player has ever come across that I've heard of. He's already repaired a torn esophagus. He was at a dinner about 3 weeks ago, and he felt a sudden pain in his throat and stomach. Normally, you would probably think that's just antacid, or what was that? Rolaids, acid reflux. You know what? They don't make that commercial anymore. Do you remember that? Rolade acid reflux? I don't even think Rolade even does the sponsorship for the reliever of the year. Do you remember that? It was for a while. This was probably like in the 2000s or something that Rolade sponsored the award for the best relief pitcher because of the antacid. Anyways, the torn esophagus is going to sideline May for the rest of the year. But I am not a ear, throat, and nose doctor. But I don't know what an esophagus has anything to do with pitching. So if anyone knows how that could actually potentially affect his pitching, send me a message. Yeah, you can say, look, Dustin May hadn't even pitched all year. But the point is that they were counting on Dustin May coming back this year to help them out because he was just coming back from, I don't know some type of elbow surgery last summer. And then 3 years ago, he had Tommy John surgery. Last year was the flexor tendon procedure on his elbow. And then now it's the esophagus. It's like, I've lost count here with the roll call for Monday morning, 12th grade here. What is it? Glasnow, Yamamoto, Ohtani, Kershaw, Buehler, May. Buehler. Right now, as far as I know, is the Dodgers have James Paxton, rookie Gavin Stone, some dude named Landon Knack, and Justin Robleski. Just like the Dodgers were counting on May to come back, they were also counting on additional help because they're just scraping pitching prospects. They wanted to give more opportunities to their right-handed pitching prospect, Kyle Hurt. But now they can't because he's having Tommy John surgery in a few days on July 30th. At this point, if you live in the LA area and have a functioning rotator cuff, the Dodgers are probably going to be reaching out to you, so stay close to your telephone. And before things get better, I'm going to share with you this. The Dodgers were going to DFA, just basically release pitcher James Paxton. Instead, they traded him to the Boston Red Sox. And the whole point of talking about the Dodgers and realizing that this is league-wide, what really caught my attention was when I saw that the LA Dodgers claimed Brent Honeywell off of waivers. Brent Honeywell was released by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Honeywell was not good with the Pirates. He's now pitched with the Dodgers, I believe, 3 times. He's pitching better, and he actually picked up the save on Thursday, I believe, against the San Francisco Giants, I want to say. But when you're claiming guys from the Pittsburgh Pirates bullpen, you are in serious trouble. Earlier this year, that Pittsburgh Pirates bullpen was awful. That bullpen cost Paul Skeens a handful of wins. To be fair, the Pirates bullpen is a little bit better because they got rid of some guys like Brent Honeywell. But when I saw that, I was like, man, the Dodgers are in serious, deep poo poo. Wow. Since the All Star break, the Dodgers have won 6 of their first 8 games, and they've played big boys. They played the Boston Red Sox, they played the San Francisco Giants, and the Houston Astros. We don't always have to be coastal elites here. What about the Arizona Diamondbacks? Nobody, not a single peep from the national media, ESPN, FS1, whoever, are talking about the Arizona Diamondbacks pitching problems. They don't have Merrill Kelly. They don't have Eduardo Rodriguez. Miguel Castro, their relief pitcher, he has shoulder inflammation. Another relief pitcher, Ryan Nelson, on the injured list. A few days ago, the Diamondbacks traded for another relief pitcher, A.J. Puck, from the Miami Marlins. This is the defending National League champions. The Diamondbacks played in the World Series last fall. Nobody's talking about them. They have zero empathy. So remember, the next time you're complaining on how your team would be so much better if only XYZ pitcher wasn't hurt, or you're waiting for so-and-so to come back, everyone is saying the same thing. And that includes me with the Atlanta Braves. If you think you have it bad, go look at someone else. Go look at the Dodgers. Go look at the Diamondbacks. And as a wiser man than me once said, you can never have enough good pitching. And as teams like the Dodgers and Diamondbacks and Braves and Yankees are trying to patch their pitching system up, and as teams like the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, the Rangers are trying to patch up their pitching rotation, pitching bullpen, those pitchers have to come from somewhere, the minor leagues, which our next guest knows a lot about. This week, I'm happy to be joined by John Stanley, Director of Communications for the Norfolk Tides, the AAA affiliate of the Baltimore Orioles. John, welcome to Last Call Baseball.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be on.
John, is Hudson Valley the most amazing part of the state of New York? Yes or yes?
Yeah, I actually take a lot of pride in being from Albany, New York. The sort of from the Dutch roots of it all to the rolling hills and how green it is, maybe some of the best summers you could ask for. I've had to get used to it being much more brutal heat-wise down here in Norfolk. But man, when I can get up there, so I'll actually be up in New York in August for a wedding. So I'm looking forward to sort of experiencing upstate New York weather for sure. Man, no, it's one of the most beautiful parts of the country. It's pretty underrated.
I agree with you. I just started getting turned on to Hudson Valley, I think like a year or two ago, and it genuinely blew my mind. Like, because all I ever really knew about New York, the state of New York, was New York City, the 8,000-pound gorilla in the south of the state. But Hudson Valley, it's insane. Like, I never considered myself like a country person, and then when I saw you're from Albany, I'm like, oh, for sure, I have to talk about Hudson Valley. Like, I'm not part of the tourist board of Hudson Valley, but like, the wineries, the art, the country, it's even, I think it's even impacts you even more because it's so close to the city that you can see that 180 of anywhere between 30 minutes to like 2.5 hour drive anywhere you want.
Totally, and just to emphasize, I personally would classify Albany as part of the Hudson Valley, probably the more northern side of it. I mean, it's when you in according to the locals, I would say if you were to describe the Hudson Valley, you might be describing more of like Poughkeepsie-ish, a little bit more south of where I am from, or Saugerties, maybe more down towards that way. But I would personally consider that we're like the northern end of that. And actually, growing up, there was sort of two teams in the New York Penn League. There are my hometown team was the Tri-City Valley Cats, and we would play against I believe it's the Hudson Valley Renegades, but that was back before minor league baseball realigned. But those were sort of the two neighboring teams of that, and yeah, we are both part of the Hudson Valley, and I'll even emphasize this: it is actually upstate New York. It's not like Buffalo, New York
Yeah.
is upstate New York. I went to Ithaca College. That's not upstate New York. There's sort of a maybe national impression that anything north of New York City is upstate because I think the city people get to dictate the narrative a little bit, but in the sense that outside of it is not, it's either New York City or not. You're New York, New York. You know, what do you have? You're either the city guy or the upstate guy, and it's a little different up there. But hey, man, I'm proud of where I'm from, no matter how we describe it, and no shame at the New York City people for having that perspective either. It's just sort of
Oh no,
New York State culture.
I've never heard anyone in the city say like look, thumb their noses at Hudson Valley. I mean, it again,
No,
it's beautiful, and that's one of the things I haven't done yet in Hudson Valley is to see the Hudson Valley Renegades because they play in Beacon. And by the way, the traffic in Beacon is awful because all those city folk come there, and I'm always teasing, but there's so much terrible traffic because everyone is like either spending the weekend up there or has a place up there. Hudson
right.
Valley. Love it. I
No,
could
for
talk to
sure,
you about
man.
Hudson Valley for our entire conversation, but I won't. But I did notice with baseball, you've been able to see a lot of the country. I see that you've worked and lived in Norfolk. Obviously, right now you're in Norfolk, Virginia. We'll get to that in a minute. Salt Lake City, Utah, Nashville, Tennessee. Do you only choose to work and live in places that are like considered cool or upcoming?
Yeah, you know, I actually think I got pretty lucky with that, and I can sort of go through my trajectory here really quick on that. Yeah, that's to start. That's definitely one of the best parts about baseball as a sport in general is it brings you to so many different places. Whether you were, especially for me when I was playing growing up, you end up playing in so many different and cool spots, but also you get to meet and play with so many different types of people across so many different demographics. And once I entered the professional career in doing so in baseball info and baseball communication specifically, it only broadened my horizons in that regard from there. So I played baseball at the college for 4 years, D3 school in the New York region. I actually entered to play football as well, but needed to focus on academics. It was too hard playing two sports. And at the D3 level, I wasn't exactly John Elway. So
Doing it for the love of the game.
no, yeah, and you love sports, and I love the guys. Shout out Bombers football for sure, man. I've still got some great friends, still play some fantasy football with guys to play with them, and hopefully develop lifelong friendships in that short year that I had with them. But continued my passion for baseball after the college. I sort of didn't spend my summers doing internships with a lot of students because I was playing baseball, so I didn't really have a job set up after it. So Sports Studies was to sort of say, hey, I want to work in sports and communications. And that sort of tied those issues together. That sort of combined philosophical and social aspects of sport. And then philosophy was just sort of self interest and apply all skills sort of thing. So, again, didn't have a job set up. My mom was recently in Norfolk. She worked for City Hall here for a bit and I needed a place to live and eat. So I moved down there and just through the connections, again, through the baseball world, I knew the Virginia Wesleyan coach, Coach Franny over there. And he was the old coach at St. Rose up there in Albany, also a college grad. And we had the same coach in George Valseny. So reached out to him saying, hey, you know, just got down here. It was about early June, right after graduation. I said, do you have any baseball work? And he says, actually, we have a startup baseball league here called the Virginia Beach Collegiate Baseball League. And how they did it was basically student athletes would basically sign up for the league. They would be housed on the campus, and they actually played all their games on campus for about 6 weeks. So that's what
Oh,
I did.
so
I
it's kind of like
volunteered.
the Cape Cod League. It's all college, like all wood bat, that type of league.
Yes.
Okay.
Obviously, not at that level of
Right.
prestige. And down here, actually, what summer ball, sort of the most prime summer ball, from what I understand, that you can play is the Coastal Plains. There's also the Tidewater League that played against some of the Virginia Beach Collegiate Baseball League while I was there. But nonetheless, 6 weeks straight of baseball, was scoring games from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. No one was even working the scoreboard. No one was utilizing the audio system, you know, by the end of it. And combining minds here, we ended up getting some of the guys to, we ended up getting a internet broadcast, one game per day, and that sort of stuff. So had all the stats covered. I really enjoyed it. I sort of learned that this was actually a profession in sports where you can actually make a career out of that. So that's where I learned that the Norfolk Tides had a communications position open At the time, came to work for Ian Locke here. So I entered here in 2017. Man, had my first experience in professional baseball. That experience led me to going to Salt Lake City, which is AAA for the Los Angeles Angels in 2018. That was sort of cool because instead of me trying to get a foot in the door, I actually had some experience to leverage. So how it used to work is at the baseball winter meetings, they have a job fair and you can sort of post your jobs there if you're a team and prospective interns, you should say. If they're interested enough, they go there and you kind of want to hire out of there because, hey, if you're interested enough, you would be at this type of job fair. So a lot of teams like to hire out of there. I had the chance I could have either gone to Oklahoma City, El Paso, or Salt Lake. I ultimately chose Salt Lake because they were owned by the Utah Jazz, and there was some mixed experiences there. And hey, I'm an East Coast guy. Moving out that far, it was all the same, anyways. Even though that was really the farthest I could have gone, but man, really loved my time there. I mean, that was right when Donovan Mitchell was getting to Salt Lake City and won the dunk contest, and there was just a lot of cool things happening at that time. And
Yeah.
then I went to 2019, sort of same process. Was hoping to get into the majors because that's what you try to do. Similar, you try to work your way through the minors and get experience to get to the majors. If you didn't get that experience in college, which a lot of people do. So unfortunately, I fell short of that goal, even though getting interviews with some teams. But
Not yet, because not to cut you off, but you've had this awesome experience now, and two questions in one, because now you're the director of communications for Norfolk Tides. Because when I think about communications, I just think of like, okay, someone has to do like social media to promote, promotion night, get butts and seats. But obviously, I don't know. That's just my outsider perspective. And then secondly, how amazing is it to be with Norfolk Tides with the almost obscene amount of talent that's been going through your pipeline up to Baltimore? And I'm like, well, if you're there, then certainly the next step for you eventually is going to be just like all the other kids that have gone through Norfolk to go up to Orioles. Mr. Stanley's going to be there
totally,
sooner than
no, and
later.
it's yeah, it's. I mean, I'd like to think it would be it's valuable experience nonetheless. You sort of learn too that even though major leagues is obviously the next level and that's where people want to be, just like the players do, right? But there's pluses and minuses to it. I mean, I'm in a smaller office, for an example, and I'll try to hone in on some of these questions though before I start rambling again. I guess just to start, the big thing I'll fast forward a little bit to Norfolk. Yeah, this experience that I've had, I've been here since June 2021. And yeah, I've had every single year I've been here, the number one prospect in baseball has somehow landed here. I've got to be the only PR director in minor league history that has experienced that. I think the rankings have really only been started since the 1990s by Baseball America. And they came out with an article. I believe the Orioles were the first team in their publication's history to have 3 straight years of the number one prospect, I believe preseason. And so then I kind of shrug and say, well, I got to be the only guy then, barring any sort of like me, if you relocated, an X amount of times, you somehow nailed it 3 times in a row. Good for you. But no, it's a unique experience, and I'm in what is turning out to be, and hopefully, fingers crossed, a golden era for the Orioles, and especially for it. I was there in 2017, sort of at the end of it, where I believe that was the last year Machado was there, or maybe the last year and a half.
Yeah, I think that was the year he was traded to the Dodgers, and then Jonathan Scope was gone, and yeah, it was just complete
It's
nosedive.
really funny, and again, not throwing shots because it's all cyclical. There's ups and downs. I believe Major League Baseball wants it that way. Other than obviously everyone would love to have their large markets doing well, but you kind of want to shift in winners as well, and you want there's going to be a natural cycle in how the league structure works. As soon as I left, it just so happened that they were sort of pressing the reset button, and then I came back when things started to materialize. So it took 3 or 4 years ish. Yeah, no, it's been certainly been unique, and it's really fun, sort of seeing and just to say the names, if people haven't realized, it was Adley Rutschman in 2021. He started the season still as the number one prospect, was sort of injured and had to start the season late, but ended up doing so. And then the only technicalities I would fight against was that Gunnar Henderson got called up in 2022 there to AAA. and then he got his contract selected August 31st. So he was technically not the number one preseason guy until next year. Didn't play until 2023. I think he was a midseason ranked number one, so I still count it as he's a number one prospect. And then, hey, Jackson Holiday ends up getting to be number one by the end of 2023. He reaches us, starts at low A, climbs all the way to triple A as a 19-year-old. I
Yeah,
think the
in one
fourth
season.
youngest.
I think it's
Yeah,
all he did all in one season, which is
and this wasn't
bonkers.
one of the, it's not one of those cases where, especially at the catcher position, sometimes it's hard being a catcher and, you get banged up a little bit. You need to call a guy up from low A. Like, it's not one of those things. It's like, oh, like every month by month, he was just excelling and he proved that he was ready for that level by that time. So I mean, it was unique. That really, I can't express enough how much that doesn't happen. And especially because college baseball has become such a big facet and how players develop these days, that there's really not an opportunity for an 18-year-old, 17-year-old in some cases to be doing something like that. So, so to be able to witness that and then to still see him, frankly, doing really, really well this year in AAA, it's been quite. I'm just coming up on 3 years here with the Tides, and obviously we won a national championship in 2023 this past season too. So it's been quite the full minor league experience.
And then for the communication part of your job, like what does the minor league or even a baseball club? Because again, I'm not part of the inner workings, but it's just curious on what you do because we always have again a different perspective of what you're communicating at, what you want to.
Yeah, right. So just starting from that's where I didn't realize this position actually did exist necessarily. That I kind of learned that actually doing the internship stuff with that collegiate league, because then I saw the job responsibilities on the job posting, and I'm like, oh, this is a thing. Okay, so a lot of it is actually that I didn't do or mention is a lot of it is taking baseball stats or taking data sets and turning them into English. And largely you do that for the broadcasters, you do it for the media, you do it for the coaches in some cases. Not that look, they have their own stats at this point. Things have really changed since this role has since I've begun the role because of the advanced metrics and things of that nature. But it's still things like left and righty splits are still looked at, for example, which is something that we provide on the daily, and it's updated all the time. So yeah, every day I come in, I basically organize the statistics for those interested groups, send them out, making sure basically everyone's prepared. Why it's referred to as PR is, there's to an extent there is sort of, I wouldn't call it manipulating the numbers, but I'm not going to sit here and write things poorly about the Tides, for example. That's not my job. I'm not a journalist. I'm here to, if anything, be an asset to the Tides, being an asset to our front office, the Orioles front office, and the fans. Basically, I'm kind of a bridge in between those interests. It obviously does no good if I sit there and be like, oh, well, so and so is over his last 15. I mean, that might be true, and you can find that if you look at the numbers, but there's not really that. I'm not there to point that out. What I'm there to point out is who's doing well and what you can enjoy, and at the same time, try to use that power to basically mislead people.
Now that you explain it, it makes sense because when you go to a game, most of the times you'll like have what is like the media guide, and then I'm thinking sometimes you'll go through the player's bio and they have like really quirky things like, but at the same time when you're watching a game, sometimes the announcer will say, "Oh, so and so is the first player in franchise history to I don't know record 15 straight singles against left-handed players on a Thursday," and you're like, "How do who know? How do you know that? Like, where
Yeah,
do you come up
right.
with this stuff?" And then I'm thinking, yeah, you're like you act as the bridge to be able to, like as you said, translate it. And yeah, I'm glad you explained it to me because I never would have thought I would never would have connected what you hear and read with someone in like the communications department.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm that guy in the chair when you see those weird stats that a guy came up with that sort of on the spot during the games, and there's larger staffs for major league games. Like for me, I'm the only full-time guy in with the Tides here. I do have an assistant, and we do have a creative services team that sort of does the creative side of the social media responsibilities, which I do have, but I let them do the more artsy stuff because that's not my strength. I know the stats, I know the teams, but So I'll stick to sort of the game content where they sort of stick with the artsy side and sort of making the guys look good in the bright lighting.
Well,
So
if you need more inspiration for art, I suggest to go back to spend more time back home in the Hudson Valley, to go to the amazing museums in Beacon. And then there's that, I don't know if you know, a museum that's only dedicated to all Italian works. It's by I think it's by Rhinebeck. I'm not exactly sure. I,
oh,
I
okay.
see the place. I just totally forget it. I'll have to like send it to you later. But anyways, yes.
Yeah,
Again,
no, that doesn't surprise me at all. Certainly, that's actually the one thing I miss, by the way, is the fantastic Italian food from up north, man. But anyways,
yeah.
yeah, no, that's a lot of what I do. And then the other thing I do is beyond that is organizing the interviews between either the players, our manager Buck Britton, and fun fact, Buck is, if everyone remembers the All Star, Zach Britton, his brother Buck, they were in the system at the same time actually.
Didn't
And
know that.
Buck is this is his third year being our manager. So organizational guy, he played Orioles organization with us. So it's kind of fun working baseball because it's all these small little things. And in fact, I would say my biggest first welcome to the small world of professional baseball. When I got here, there was a long general manager here named Dave Rose. He actually passed away when I was here in 17, and but he was a legend. He was here since the team went from the Carolina League to the AAA team in 1969, and so with 55 years of service or something, it was something like that. He's been around a lot of names, and we're at his memorial service here, and there's a lot of Clint Hurdle was one of the bigger names that was here that spoke for him because he was playing with the Tidewater Mets or Tidewater Tides, excuse me, for a while during the Mets organization. And Bobby Valentine was involved. I believe he was, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, was a manager here or coach. And knew Rosie, and I was working on some stuff like media guide stuff, bios, like the end of it, and someone taps me on the shoulder, like, "Hey, can you point me to the weight room?" And I turned around, and it's Bobby Valentine. And it's like, yeah, man,
Not wearing, hopefully not wearing a mustache or fake mustache,
no,
right?
no, it wasn't. I just, you're 22 years old and you sort of hear these big names and you don't exactly expect to be so close to it in a place like Norfolk, Virginia. And then all of a sudden you realize that it's a pretty small, tight knit universe. And you also realize that even though it is AAA, there's big things happen here, or at least there's people there that end up doing bigger things in the future. And it's kind of cool that Norfolk is a stepping stone for that. And I get to be a part of that process.
It's the
Um,
it's the last springboard.
yeah, no, exactly. And there's a lot of theme about that, from me saying, early on, I was really inspired to maybe try to make it to the bigs at some point. And I did work for the bigs, at least in a seasonal role for a couple seasons. But beyond that, it's like there's sort of a common theme amongst all that. And there's sort of there's a beauty to witnessing the final stages of that process.
No,
And that's what I get a lot of joy out of my job.
yeah, I think it's amazing that you're still able to work a dream job since we were kids, whether, whatever your favorite sport is, in this case, obviously talking about baseball is, if you're not able to wear the jersey of your favorite team, you're still working it. It's like, I remember when I was a kid out watching like Sports Center, and you're like, how in the world do these guys, they get paid? My perception of it was, you get paid to watch sports all day. That's amazing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you get paid to be in baseball, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, and frankly, I brag about it. It's not often you get to say you love your job. Sure, it grinds on you, man. It totally does. I mean, and takes away some of your social life. There's definitely sacrifices to it. Leaving upstate New York being one of them, man. I still have some great best friends at home that I really only get to see during the off seasons because I'm so focused on being down here. So
Of
it's
course.
tough when you have to leave everyone but that's also a similar process. To your point, if you grow up wanting to be a major league baseball player, you're actually living even more of a grind than that. I mean,
Right.
imagine when I was there in Salt Lake, they're calling guys up and down from at the time it was from Mobile, Alabama. So if you're going up and down from there, how are you? You're on the road basically for 6 to 8 months. I mean, you could be from Michigan, and then you're just going back and forth from Salt Lake City and Mobile, maybe LA if you're getting your cup of coffee. But it's that's the lifestyle,
Yeah.
and you only do it into your early 30s if you're lucky as a player.
Hmm.
So there's similar sacrifices, not nearly as much, but when you work in baseball, there are similar sacrifices to that.
And outside of baseball, I read that you enjoy beaches. But then, as I had said at the top of the conversation, you've lived in. I'm sure you've lived in other places, but just what I saw is living in the Hudson Valley, living in Utah and Tennessee. Maybe this is one of the first times you're actually living by the beach. I read that you love the beaches and you have Virginia Beach like right there. What are some of your favorite beaches so far that you've been to?
Yeah, man. No, good question. No, and you're right. I This is the only place I've actually landed where there was some beach thing. I just kind of got lucky with that. And the no disrespect the mountains. Mountains are great. I would say for one, I always end up at the Chesapeake Bay over here. I do live in Virginia Beach, very close to the ocean. A little too touristy for me, a little too busy. I kind of like going to the local beaches, which is up more in the Chesapeake Bay rather than the Atlantic Ocean. If people are familiar with the geography, it's sort of right in the corner there. So I can kind of pick my poison, and I do love that. But some of my favorite beaches, one of my favorite family vacations was going to Dover, which is very close to here in Norfolk. Actually, I
In
haven't gone
Oh,
since. It's I'm
not
sorry, in
Delaware.
Delaware.
Okay, in
Yeah,
Virginia.
Dover, the Dover Beach is in Delaware. They're
Oh,
great
okay.
beaches. I had a great time. One of my favorite family vacations growing up. And I mean, otherwise, I've really liked the Gulf Coast
Florida.
Florida. Of
You're.
Florida,
I was
yes.
just about
Yeah,
to say that if you didn't bring that
yeah,
up. Yeah, the beaches anywhere between Naples is a little too sleepy for me because whatever. It's like
sure.
it's retirement, but yeah, you're talking about
Yeah.
Not Dunedin. It's St. Pete, Madeira Beach. Where else? Clearwater
I was gonna
Beach.
say Clearwater. Yeah, I actually funny. So after when I was done in Nashville in 2019, I actually ended up working for the New York Yankees in spring training in 2020. Unfortunately, the internship got cut short because COVID hit. So sort of taking the risk and sort of how Florida was at the time, they didn't close anything down yet. So and flights ended up dropping to a ridiculous level where a couple friends flew down to Florida, and it's crazy to think we did that at the time because of what was going on. But we enjoyed our last few days of pre-COVID stuff there in Clearwater, actually, before we sort of locked ourselves down. And at least I got to experience that. And one thing I wish I did, I didn't do it this past year, was in I was in Sarasota in March. We did the prospect game was in Bradenton, and caught some other spring training action in Sarasota for the Orioles, and sort of reacclimated myself with media and the players and things like that. And man, I guess Sarasota has, I can't remember what beach it is, but apparently there's a beach there that is known to have the softest sand.
It's Amelia Island, I believe it's called.
I
It's
think
right
that
off
might
of.
be
It's a
it.
peninsula from Sarasota, Amelia Island. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, it was like really, yeah, exactly. So
You're preaching to the choir. You're saying that, yeah, all respect to the mountains and Hudson Valley, but I prefer the beach. You're right. The sands on the west coast of Florida are, I think, the most beautiful beaches in the continental US.
hmm.
Because if you're able to go out to the beaches in California, specifically Southern California, they
Hmm.
have beautiful, especially around like Malibu, they have like those beautiful, like kind of caves and geological structures. But in July, the water is absolutely freezing. And I'm used to Florida beaches and I'm like, I don't like this. But I will say this for Virginia Beach, I was really surprised that I don't know about the local beaches that you go to, but in Virginia Beach, they have like clay colored sand. And I'd never seen it. It's like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Hmm.
It's almost like you're on Mars. It's like the beach at the Mars. Like, why don't they just
Yeah.
film an interesting sci-fi movie out here? Because I have never seen clay sand, no, clay colored sand.
Yeah, right. No, I actually haven't witnessed that myself, but that actually reminds me. I did take my one trip to Hawaii. Apparently, they have some pretty colorful beaches too. I don't know too much about. I didn't visit them. I was only in the typical places like Waikiki over there in Honolulu. But for one, fantastic beach. But two, yeah, apparently they got like a black beach around there. Like literally, there's black
I'm sure because
grains
of the
of sand.
volcano and all that,
I think that must be
volcano
it.
ash or
But
something.
yeah, I can only imagine how hot that sand is, man. I so same with the clay, man. I'll take my old regular sand here in Chesapeake Bay, but man, yeah, no question, man. I'm a beach guy, and mountains are beautiful, great hikes, but I'll dip my toes in there
I am
more often than that.
my last, well, not even my suggestion because you have spent time down on the west coast of Florida. My other suggestion is this is probably what like a 4 or 5 hour drive potentially for you. North Carolina beaches are nice. The beaches
Mm.
in South Carolina are gorgeous. Their sand is almost as white as the ones in Florida. You're talking about like Surfside Beach, which is just below Myrtle Beach, and like just getting closer to the border with Georgia and Charleston. I love the beaches in South Carolina. They are
Yeah,
beautiful. And again, depending on when you go, just like Virginia Beach, like there's obviously peak seasons and off seasons. You want to go and you don't want to go.
I will say now that I'm in a place, I'm less inclined to be like, oh, nice, a different beach. Like I'm I'm not as my demand's been sort of filled a little bit, but I have been down to Conway, Myrtle Beach as well. Yeah, it's amazing, and I have friends that live in North Carolina. They frequently do a trip to Wilmington, which I haven't been to. I will definitely get to Wilmington at some point, and I still haven't done the Outer Banks, and the Outer Banks is like an hour from me,
Yeah, they have
and it's one of the most legendary spots in the country.
yeah,
So
because
I gotta at some
definitely
point.
there's
But
also a good brewery in Wilmington that I passed by, I think like last year. Anyways,
I hear there's a couple. Yeah.
yeah, the questions I love asking my guests, and I can't think of someone who's going to, with your background, I'm eagerly anticipating what you're going to say here. When we take you away, just so that the Baltimore Orioles and the Norfolk Tides don't get upset, we're going to take you away and elevate you to the newly created position of the czar of minor league baseball. What's one or two things that you would do to change the game, to enhance the game, anything you want? It doesn't have to be technical. Again, you're the czar, so you could literally do anything you want.
Yeah, it's so. This was a really interesting question because this is something that, frankly, everyone's asking themselves, and with that, I think Major League Baseball has been doing a good job. It sounds like ticket sales have been up around, and for me, I think one of my biggest things it's not just obviously we're a business and people we need to make money to function. So like there's no doubt that that's going to be the business side. But what's great about this question is it does fuel why a lot of us are here in the first place. And frankly, a lot of us don't do this for the money because there's way better ways to make money. I'll tell you that. So a lot of it is being able to reach out to different communities and different people, not just in this country but internationally, and to not only enjoy the game itself, but to appreciate the lessons and where people come from, and how the game is taught, things of that nature. Because in the same way, martial art can be good for someone's philosophy. I truly believe that baseball as a sport teaches pretty great fundamental lessons when it comes to approaching life. So, for me, that's why I'm here. That's why I sort of like being in this route because I get to do that by helping represent the players and teams and things of that nature. And, ideally people come out of it thinking, you know what, I really like this game. Would love to teach my kids this game, would love them to learn what those lessons are. So with that, a really interesting route that I think MLB is taking, not just for the dollar signs, but I think for exposure, is the gambling aspect of things. And that's where it can get a little controversial. And I don't really have a controversial take. The thing that I get worried about is I do not believe that teams or I'm sorry, fans should not be able to bet wins and losses in developmental leagues, for an example. That which is something that might happen. I have no idea if baseball is going that way. This isn't some sort of breakaway thing, but the benefits are breaking news thing. The benefit of gambling is which I probably the only part I like about it. I'm not really a gambler myself. Is that you can really, really learn the players. I say I'm not a gambler. I already admitted to being a huge fantasy football player, but man, I have learned so much about the NFL. I followed it. I'm a huge Buffalo Bills fan. Both my parents from Buffalo, but I've really learned about the league through fantasy. Growing up with my dad, he's been in a rotisserie fantasy baseball league for a long time, like since the '90s, before the internet was like they were keeping track of it on pen and paper. So I was always fascinated with that stuff, and it was so great because I learned the players. They had a minor league draft, so you can kind of learn about the prospects too. And it's like, does it suck that there's a gambling part of it to where that's where you could sort of recruit fans, if you will? But again, are those fans? Are those or are those people? Or are they just gamblers? And that's something I'm still contemplating. Is do the ends justify means? Do they like baseball? They end up playing baseball because they like gambling. I shrug my shoulders, right? At the end of the day, people are adults, and as long as we're not exploiting people's addictions, but I think there's an actual ethics problem if we start maybe gambling. I think what I would prefer is limiting if baseball decides to go this route, that they would limit it to daily lineups. Because at the end of the day, players are always going to want to do well individually. There is always that incentive. But for an example, how minor league baseball works, you're not going to pull a guy in a reliever in the seventh or eighth because oh no, like we got to hold on to this lead. It's like no, this guy's allotted an inning. Like he's got to get his work in today. If it goes longer, if it's shorter, it's whatever. Like, but he just has to go today. And like a little aspect like that, you're just leaving fans to know like, oh well, hey, it's likely this bullpen pitcher will go, but he's on short rest, so we like, yeah, you can focus on that. But at the end of the day, you're gambling on something where people are not even necessarily trying to win. Yeah, the guys are trying to win, but really development's the top priority. So I think there might be a happy medium there, or at least I'm very open to there being a happy, because I think the gambling wave is here in professional sports. I think we can all agree on that. But that there is a proper way to regulate this where we can maximize player exposure while maintaining, for one, the integrity of the league, which is probably the biggest thing. I mean, and it's great to see you say the NBA has been really cracking down on that. The NFL's been cracking down on that. And MLB, obviously, with its history, has been sensitive about this for over 100 years now. So, I'm sure they're going to be very careful about it. So if I'm the czar, I'm identifying a problem without a solution, which seems to be a common thing about most people. But
Well,
I
as
would
a czar,
try
you
to,
can just delegate the stuff to
yeah,
other
right.
people. You're
And
like,
screw the
I'm
consequences,
thinking
right?
about this, guys. Go and do something about it.
Yeah. I would actually say go forth. I would say go forth with daily fantasy lineups. It not only brings attention to the prospects better than ever, which I think is maybe one of the biggest problems for MLB. Baseball's got to be so careful about that, and they got to sort of weigh that trade off between exposing their players in the most positive light possible and getting fans excited versus it just becoming some sort of mechanism for exploiting gambling addiction.
Certainly not for telling people what to do or what not to do, but there's nothing wrong with innocent gambling. You're thinking about like your March Madness office pool for college basketball. Hey, just fill in your brackets, pitch in $20 and whatever the winner gets, whatever, $400. Okay, that's fine. But my issue with gambling and putting it in sports is not so much obviously like the insider stuff. We've seen a couple of people in the NBA, we've seen NFL players as well. Is that gambling in itself is inherently designed to pull money out of someone's pocket into all the all of the gambling online sites we have, which then obviously fund NBA, MLB, etc. Because there's no such thing as skill in gambling. You might say, like, if you're like a card player, there's probably skill involved in that. But just picking
Yes.
the Bills are gonna, beat the Cardinals by 3 on Sunday, that's not really a skill because if you do start winning a lot of money, that online house is gonna shut you down. We're talking
Mm,
about Hudson Valley and art earlier.
mm,
No one's going to
mm.
go to an amazing artist and say, look, artist X, you better stop producing this awesome art that everyone wants because it's not good for our business. No one's
Mm.
telling them to, that's not a skill. No one's, if you're develop homes, like you develop beautiful craftsman style homes, like no one's going to go to you and say, hey, you know what? We're not going to give you any more permits more than 1,000 houses because it's so beautiful. Everyone's wanting it. You're driving up demand. This isn't good for us. That's a skill. Being a
Yeah,
carpenter, being an artist, not just guessing that, the Norfolk Tides are going to be the champions again. Like that's my issue with gambling as a whole, where these companies are set up so they never lose. So where's the skill in that?
yeah. No, I mean that's no, totally. I mean that's the house wins, but it can't function unless the house wins. Correct.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
yeah, like you had said earlier about like the potential gambling addiction with some people, it's
but
unfortunate.
but we're adults,
Yeah,
and I sort
absolutely.
of agree that if I think there's some like I've done it before where obviously I'm not allowed to get involved in baseball, but prior to being employed here, like I would go to a game in football or basketball, and it's fun to think like, oh, I have a player in my league that's playing right now. So if someone wanted to come to a game and a player's there and they'll be like, I'm just having fun here. I actually want this guy to do well. So, let's throw some money on him to do well. And then it's a double whammy. I win-win or there's different tactics. Or maybe you want to go win-lose, like to me, I want him to do well, but just in case he doesn't, at least I come out on top of it. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
how people can use their money for that however they want. I just think there should be limits on certain,
If there's
even
limits
prop
on
bets.
wins, there should be limits on losses.
Yeah, absolutely. And I even don't like the idea of, I mean, MLB might do this right now for MLB. Like, is the next pitch going to be a striker ball? I just think that's
I think they have talked about that. I don't think it's implemented yet because
is
I
it
don't
not?
have those
Okay, yeah,
accounts, but I did read that they were going to do something like this, and in the NFL as well, like what the next if it's going to be a run, a
yeah,
pass, the next play,
runner
etc.
pass, right? Will there be a turnover this play if you really want to? Yeah, so it to me, it's a hard. You want to create as free of a society as possible, but you also recognize that there's a monster there, right? And we all have a different line of what we think that monster should be able to do what it wants, right? But it's also like I have a lot of faith that MLB is going to be properly cautious about this. I would use my magical powers as czar to find the perfect balance, being able to getting guys, making sure there's an incentive process to where players can still want to do well while also fans can sort of have fun with that performance, even if I wouldn't participate in it with myself. So,
Czar Stanley, we've used a lot of brain power thinking about gambling in sports. We were talking about beaches, which everyone knows you spend a day out on the beach, it beats you up, you get dehydrated, you get hungry. When we go see the Norfolk Tides and their almost endless parade of amazing talent, pipeline talent going up to the Baltimore Orioles, and then eventually playing at the All Star game like they did just recently. What's some good local places that you enjoy going to in the Norfolk area for coffee, tea, drink, food, what have you, so that we know where to eat when we go see the Tides?
man, right downtown, my guilty pleasure is it's a burger beer joint called Jack Brown's, which actually has locations in different cities. There's actually one in Nashville. Funny that it's actually in walking distance from First Horizon Park there as well. But I think it started actually in Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is where James Madison is. University, and now they have locations in other spots, and it's kind of cool. They've got it's a divey feel, but the burgers and their fry sauce are just it's incredible. And
Wait, fried sauce or
it's like a fry sauce. It's not sauce
oh,
that's
fry
fried. It's
sauce?
like
Okay,
four French fries.
got
Yeah.
it.
So and I can only imagine the mix. I think it's like some sort of mayo and Thousand Islands sort of mix. So I could be so wrong about that, but either
Easily
way,
burned
it's
off playing a doubleheader on a random Monday night.
oh yeah, no, it's. I mean, yeah, you're going to be sitting there with your eyes sort of filtering off, but I really liked it, and they have fried Oreos too. For an extra buck and get a fried Oreo. I even enjoyed that, and I think they have like a beer punch card. They have so many beers that I think if you drink them all, there's some sort of status that you can achieve beating them all, and then you're a hero of some sorts. But yeah, I'm not actually much of a beer drinker myself, but I don't uh, have the ambition to do that. But I recommend that at any point. Walking distance from the ballpark, probably 10 to 15-minute walk, but it would be worth anyone's time down there. Coffee wise, it's tough because we're actually, I believe, supposedly the largest importing spot in the country on the East Coast for coffee. So we get all sorts of different coffee spots here, and I actually don't have a place to shout out necessarily, but I do know that anytime I'm getting beans from any of these spots, it's like you can basically get anything from anywhere across the world because with Norfolk being the largest naval base and port on the East Coast of the U.S., actually I think it's just the largest base in the world. We not only get to keep gas pretty cheap down here, which is pretty nice. I like that because I think it all comes in. But also, yeah, the coffee imports are incredible. So it's like from the seafood, There's so many different seafood spots I could go by, but one place I go to is Dockside up there in Shore Drive. That's in Virginia Beach.
Mm.
But man, I could honestly rave about a lot of different spots when it comes to seafood too. So those are sort of my. I have my preferred burger joint. I have maybe way too many suggestions for both coffee and seafood.
I'm going to give you one suggestion for coffee. Not so much a place, but you mentioned that all the different beans go in. Whenever you go to wherever you locally buy your stuff, I was told this by some friends in New York City.
Hmm.
They are like coffee connoisseurs slash snobs. They were saying they get Yemenese coffee. They say
Yemenis.
Yemenese coffee is the best, but it's so hard to find in the city, but in New York City. But if it's easier to, it might be easier to find in obviously Norfolk, where it comes in, as you said, it's imported from there. I still
That would
haven't
be
had it
interesting.
because I haven't been able to find Yemenese coffee, but yeah, I'm just passing that along. So if you don't like it, it wasn't my fault. But if you like it, totally because of me.
I got that written down now, and it's a good opportunity for me to fact check. All right, we really are the biggest importer. Then we definitely find some Yemenis coffee. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, we'll see. I'm gonna check that out.
I'll let us know
Check
how
that
it
out
is. But
for
John, I
sure.
want to thank you for your time and spending time with us. Let us know where we can find anything on social media or anything for the Norfolk Tides so we can stay connected.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it's a big thing is that we use our social media to we. Frankly, my strategy is to make it a giant highlight reel. So you can basically follow the Orioles, which is prospect line, which is right now still ranked the number one in baseball, has been since 2021. So you'll find that on X, formerly known as Twitter. That's just at Norfolk Tides. It's the same on Instagram, and you can find us on Facebook as well. But that's where and so Instagram is going to be a lot more video and color and sort of showing off our cool merchandise as well. So you can actually find that on our website too, norfolktides.com. We have a team store part where we have a lot of cool things. Honestly, I try to take advantage of our promo stuff too. I've got so many different alternate things going on. We're actually like this Saturday, for example. One of the big things that this area has is orange crushes, which is freshly squeezed oranges
Oh,
with
okay.
typically vodka. And I'm actually not a vodka drinker myself, but there's a place that's one of my favorite spots to go, the Shack. They freshly squeeze it right in front of you to get the vodka mixed in there. You can get different ones too, like pineapple and stuff. But yeah, so we're going to be the Norfolk Squeezers this Saturday, actually. So, and it's just like
Oh,
it's
that's
like a
alternate identity, right?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're them like once a year, and like we were the Norfolk Coffee one year, and we try to shout out that's one of the cool parts. And we talk about being a bridge in the community. We try to grasp the different and vast cultures around us. And hey, the orange crush drink is definitely an iconic drink around here. So that's always pretty fun. And we sell that gear. I mean, I think the logo, if I remember correctly, is like an orange with a baseball bat, and it's smashing something. So you're squeezing the oranges. It's nice when it's 100 degrees down here too. So yeah, that's a fun night this week. But all sorts of cool gear like that. You can check it out our team store site, and you can find that through our website on northtides.com.
Thank you, John, for joining us this week. And this week I've been drinking a beer. Am I going back to beer? No, I said I am going to phase beer out in the summer, and I am phasing it out in honor of Virginia Beach in Southern Virginia. I'm having a good American local beer called Virginia Blackberry, which is a Belgian style white ale brewed with fresh Virginia blackberries from Hardywood Park Craft Brewery in Richmond, Virginia. The berries are subtle, but it's a good beer. It's a good summer beer. There's no beach by Richmond, but I think it's about like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive, depending on traffic, to Virginia Beach. So you can visit the capital of the Commonwealth of Virginia and then head out over to the beach, Norfolk, Virginia Beach area to enjoy the clay-colored sand, which I don't mean it in a bad way. I've found it super interesting. I had never been to a beach that had a clay-colored sand. Incredible. And believe it or not, we now have a YouTube channel, Last Call Baseball. We're posting the audio of previous episodes, starting with episodes 123. We're adding, obviously, the audio, pictures. Every week, I think we're doing like 5 to 7 episodes until we actually catch up to where we are now. But feel free to go back and actually see who some of these guests are, the things we're talking about. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want. And as always, we're on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram. Rate and review the podcast if you want. And of course, you can wear one of our podcast t-shirts to the beach or the lake or the pool, whatever you want. Check it out if you want. And I want to tell you, thanks for listening to Last Call Baseball. Be great and get home safe.